Hello and welcome to the Renaldo Creator Show on air. I have a special guest, Ebony. Ebony, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing great. So I know you just wrote a new book. If you don't mind, could you tell us about your book?
Absolutely. It is called Reflections of a Beauty in Chaos, and it's pretty much focusing on a child that grew up in foster care and just the ins and outs of trying to maneuver through life, figure out which way to go and what direction to go in, and just dealing with the ins and outs of trouble and just trying to survive, really. So that's pretty much what the gist of it is about.
Could you tell us where you from? A lot of people probably want to know where you from.
I am originally from Philadelphia, but I grew up in South Jersey for the most part. Currently live in Williamston, North Carolina. That's where I've been pretty much for the last 15 years.
I know coming from a place like Philadelphia, New Jersey, where there's a lot going on and everything is fast paced, and coming to a small town like Williamston, what made you decide to come to Williamston? What is the difference, and what do you like about being in a place like Williamston? Because I know it's a lot slower. Than people are more friendly than New Jersey, so just let.
Honestly, as you said, yeah, New Jersey is definitely fast paced. Definitely a shock to me when I first came down. I came down here so my husband could take care of his mother at the time, or his sister taking care of her at the time. I found a sense of peace down here. I can't say that I didn't. And that peace pushed me to stay, just to have my kids be able to go outside and run on grass as opposed to pavement. So, yeah, that's a big motivator, especially if you have small children. And like I said, just the peace that I found being down here. It is extremely quiet, and I love that for me because I am used to, or was used to, should I say, used to the hustle and bustle of being up north and just everything moving 100 miles an hour as opposed to just being able to slow down to about 10 miles an hour here in Williamston. So I'm excited just for the peace, if nothing else.
Area. Do you have any shout outs before we get into more about your book?
But absolutely, every family member I have in the tri-state area, just between Philly, New Jersey, New York, and even Delaware, just shout all of them out just for just being family and contributing to my upbringing. So shout out to all of them and everyone else that lives up there as well.
Definitely, and I know you do music too, so we got to get your music to Funk Nation Radio. That's a radio station in Philadelphia. So we definitely got
Okay.
to get your music to Dirty Fingers. Shout out Dirty Fingers. That's the program director. He also work at a college radio station up in Philadelphia. So we definitely got to get your stuff to him. But yeah, what inspired you to become a writer of all things?
Honestly, it started when I was a kid. To be honest with you, I grew up in special ed classes. Quite a few times I heard that I wasn't going to be smart enough to do too much of anything. And so the way I would deal with the insults that I would receive from people and just the outlet that I had because I grew up in foster care was just to write. I wrote literally everything. And if I didn't write, I was sick. So ended up getting into a bad car accident in 2017 and I couldn't really do too much. I decided, hey, maybe this is a good time to go ahead and really focus on writing. But then once I was able to get going and up and moving again, it got put on hold. Then the COVID hit and it was like, hey, maybe this was a good time to start writing again. But again, it was the same thing. Once that was over, it was business as usual. So just excited that finally buckled down to actually get this done this time.
That's awesome. So yeah, and if you, I don't know if you're too familiar with Dr. Umar Johnson, he talk about how a lot of black kids are put into special eds and they shouldn't be in special ed. It's because the teacher usually from the suburbs and usually the teachers who teaching, they don't understand black kids. And so they put them in special ed because a lot of kids are in special ed that don't belong in special ed. Like I had to go to a speech class younger and I shouldn't have been in that speech class, but that's just how they do. So how do
Absolutely.
you approach, I'm sorry, was you about to say something?
I wasn't. I was disagreeing. Go ahead.
Yeah, and definitely for you to write a book that just proves that you didn't belong. How do you approach your writing process?
Let me be honest with you. I started with a bunch of excuses. It was, oh, I don't have time to write. I don't do this. I don't have this. And oh, goodness, I have children to raise. And so I actually ended up getting a mentor. Her name is Pastor Kim. And she's like, listen, set a time aside. Just give yourself an hour a day. And if you can't do that, give yourself 5 minutes. And if you can't do that, you know what I'm saying? It was kind of like, give yourself some time. So I approached it that way. And I became excited about it because every day I knew I had this hour to myself. Once I set it in my mind to set this hour aside, then I was like, okay, well, that's not enough time. I ended up coming across Google Doc, and of course, you can download that to any device. So I downloaded it to my phone, and I'm like, if you can send a 7-page text message, if somebody aggravates you, then you most certainly can sit down and write some more to this book. So that's what I did. That was my approach. My approach was to every time I would get angry, every time I would find myself about to curse or something like that, I use that as a muse, if that makes any sense. And I pulled that Google Docs up and I just started writing. And that's kind of pretty much how it went.
What I find is there's a notepad app on your phone, whether you have Android or if you have a iOS device. And what I do is
Right.
like if I'm in a doctor office or start an article and then I get to my computer, then I'll finish it. So that might be another thing that you might want to start doing too. Start using that notepad app on your phone.
Right, absolutely. And that is good too. And I actually do use that as well Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays because we have a prayer line for my church. And so I use that quite a bit as well. So that is definitely a good tool to utilize as well. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so did any specific experience or memories influence your writing?
Well, again, as I stated, this just growing up the way I did and growing up hearing quite often that I wasn't going to be smart enough to do anything. It was just, I don't know, it was a trigger for me, especially after I graduated from high school and I went to a vocational school because that's one of the things that they claim, if you're not smart, you go to a vocational school and you forget the option of college. So what it was I went to this vocational school and I passed through there with flying colors. Actually, I got straight A's, and I was like, okay, you're not dumb. Realize that you're not dumb. So with that being said, I just kept pushing, and then I decided I was going to go to college. I didn't go to college for the first time until I was almost 30 years old, just living off of what I had heard my whole life, and just okay. I passed my first English class, and I was like, oh, okay, well, this is it. This is the move. You can write. You can pretty much do anything that you set your mind to. You don't have to live with that stigma. So after that, it just took off. I kind of, what the old folks say, I give you an inch, you take a mile. Well, honey, I didn't try to take a yard, a mile, 10 miles, 15 miles, and I'm going to keep on running. So that's where I'm at with that.
Wow, that's amazing. So yeah, that just proves so to all parents, get a second opinion when someone say that your kid is should be in special ed because they could be wrong. Like I said,
Right.
dealing with teachers who are not from our community, they're gonna misdiagnose and it's a lot of racism in the school system still.
Absolutely.
So we got this book. Could you tell us the title of the book?
It is called A Reflections of a Beauty in Chaos, and it is a part of a 3-part series. So that is the first book of the series.
And the question is, what are some of the topics and themes that you explore in this book?
So I guess the main topic is this young lady didn't know what her actual name was more than half of her life. So that's the main topic. And then she introduces herself at the very end of the book. But she went through, I'll say, maybe the first 11 years of her life not knowing what her name truly was. And, of course, that's a product of being growing up in foster care in some cases. So I would say that's probably like the main topic. And some of the other topics are just, some of the ins and outs of, without getting into the way, of course, some of the ins and outs of growing up and making decisions sometimes that weren't necessarily so great for her life, but also, some decisions that built her character as a person. I guess you could say that's just of it.
Okay, sounds good. I definitely can't wait to read the book. So, did you use any local elements from Williamston or did you use any elements from New Jersey or Philadelphia in the book? Like, where's the book set place at? Like, where was the place that the character is at?
The book is actually, the settings are between South Jersey and Philadelphia, to be honest with you. Because as I said, it's a 3-part series. So I haven't even begun to touch on using places like Williamston and other cities or states that I've lived in. So I just focus because it's the earliest part of my life. And even though it's not necessarily just my life, it is centered around a lot of the things that happen in my life. So I did use South Jersey and Philadelphia as my main settings in this first book.
What are some other stuff that you explore in this book?
The struggles of, again, foster care, but not just me as a foster child, but also having a child while you're in foster care. That is a big struggle. At least it was then when I was in foster care. They don't like that too much. It's already hard enough to place children, period. But then when children start having children, it becomes an issue. So I deal with teenage pregnancy. I deal with the struggles of fighting to get a child back out of foster care and just touching on just different aspects of like sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse. Those are definitely some things, and that's not even giving away the book. That's just telling you really what it's about and what things you're going to touch. And some of these things that you will read as a reader may not sit well with you. I can't tell you that this is going to be a straight out Christian book because it's not. I can't tell you that it's a straight out for the streets book because it's not. Because that wouldn't describe who I am as a person. So it's kind of just well rounded. And again, just all of the things that I, as a child coming up, and how I was able to come out of it and the process that I took to get there.
Definitely. And that's what makes, literature great because you don't know this book may be in schools or something that someone else has the same story. They're gonna read this book and it's gonna resonate with them. I know a lot of people who went through foster, other situations that you explore in this book, and that's gonna resonate with them. And that's gonna be your fan base for this book. Have you been on tour with the book, or have you been to like bookstores, like black bookstores or anything like that?
Actually, you are the beginning of, I guess, what you could call a summer tour. Beginning, I'll say, the first week of July is when I will hit the ground running with doing like meet the authors and other views, like podcasts and radio personalities, and just so much more. I hope to accomplish this summer. So yeah, I'm hoping that we'll hit bookstores, definitely African American stores, and whoever else that will have me, because I want to make sure that absolutely reaching our African American community, but I also want to reach other communities because I went through so many different foster homes and I've seen so many different nationalities. Let me just tell you, color, culture, nationalities means nothing in these homes if their heart isn't in it. So, I'm excited. Is the best way to put that. I'm excited. I'm ready for it. And I think this is just God's timing. And I'm going to use
Definitely.
his time wisely.
Definitely. You definitely gonna have supporters of every culture because, there's people who've been through different stories. Like I interviewed a guy who's from South Korea. He was homeless on the streets and he was in foster care and stuff like that. So that book will even resonate with him. It's a good guy named Travis and he's an artist also. That's how I met him. So yeah, definitely it's gonna cross boundaries because a lot of people have been through stuff like that. Have you faced any criticism for the book? And if you do, how do you deal with that?
So far, I have faced a little bit of criticism. It's kind of been like, what makes you think, your story is going to be the one that touches people, and what you think you're better than us. And I'm just at this point in my life, I will be 40 July 10th if God allows me to see it. And when I tell you I didn't think I was going to see 20. So when people come at me with their criticism or however they want to put it, or put downs or whatever, I don't have time. That ain't got nothing to do with what has something to do with me is that God ordained me to do something. And I'm finally in a point or at a point in my life where I'm tired of running from it and I'm not going to run from it any longer. So if they have something to say, it, because maybe that one line that you may have said at that point.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry. It kind of went out, I guess.
Yeah, could you re-say that? Because we was having problems.
Okay. So pretty much what I was saying is that I can't let like the criticism that I have received and things that people have said, I can't let that get to me. And in a sense, that has nothing to do with because that's their own issues and insecurities that are coming to surface. And I'm going to let them have that. Otherwise, again, I will be 40 years old July 10th if God allows me to see it. And what I can't do is allow the progress and the progression of my life be deterred because of someone else's opinion. Not only that, I didn't think I was going to live to see 20. So now that I'm about to reach 40, this is the wrong point in my life for me to be concerned with the idealism of someone else's opinion. So I just let them have it. To answer your question, they got it. If that makes you feel better, go for it.
Okay, what impact do you want your book to have on the readers?
I just want them to be motivated. I want them to see that even if the narrative of your life started out bad or terrible or not necessarily what you wanted it to be or what you thought it should have, you have the power to change it. That's one. Two, it'll show you that you can make it through some of the worst things and not even look like you've been through them. And isn't that one of the famous church expressions? I don't look like what I've been through. So
Hmm.
that's the impact I'm looking for. I'm looking for people to look at this story and be like, yeah, if she could do it, I can do it. Or I knew that there was a purpose for my life. I knew that everything that I went through has to somehow connect and contribute to the better that's going to come. That's the impact I'm looking for because I know that that's what my life represents. All the things that I went through as a kid, all the things that this young lady went through in my book as a kid, all of that contributes to who I've become. All of the things that I have a desire to do in life, all of that goes hand in hand. And it has helped me be able to talk to, because one thing that I hate is for someone to come up to me and say, I understand what you're going through. I understand what you've been through, and they've never experienced. So if you read this book, you can say, oh, she understands. She knows she's been there and she made it. There's a young man that lives in Greenville. I believe he is from the Williamston area, named Mark Quaint. And he has a song called I Made It. And let me tell you something. Just knowing, just the struggle just a piece of what I know he went through. And for him to make a song that says I made it, I have that thing on speed dial because repeat, as I should say, because again, that's a testament of knowing that somebody made it through something that they went through. And my testament at this point is this book. I made it and I'm still going. I'm keep going as long as God sees fit.
Yes, Mark Quince is from Williamston, North Carolina. Matter of fact,
Absolutely.
shout out to him and his family.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, when you were working on this book, did you have a favorite place to write? I know some authors might go to a park or they might go to, a setting in their room. Do you have a favorite spot when you was writing this book?
It's funny that you asked that question. Everybody often laughs at me because they know that I have meetings, I write. I'm even doing this interview with you in my car. That is my favorite spot. It is my favorite spot. I literally do everything in my car. I can roll down the windows. I can keep them up. It's just something about the ambience that I can set in my car. And I've done some of my best writing in there, whether it be music or this book or the other books that I plan to publish in the future. And like I said, in meetings and even this interview, everything has been in, if not this car, another car that I own. It's just something about being able to sit outside and see nature, but don't necessarily have to be in the heat or the cold to obtain it. So
Yes, I know most authors, they love being outside when they work on their art. So, because writing is still an art form, even though a lot of people don't know it. It's an art form. You're painting with words. So, you
absolutely, I love
being
that.
being in the nature is the same as Bob Ross when he was on PBS.
Yes. And I used to watch him, and I so often watch him now. I reruns, but I watch him now when I just need to clear my mind. I actually sit and pull up a little rerun of him just painting and just him talking because it's so minor tone. Is just between him talking and the painting, it gives me a whole nother sense of peace. And once I'm done with that, I just get up and I'm like, okay, all right, I can open the door and run back out in chaos. So I love that.
Awesome. And what motivates you to keep writing? I know it's hard sometimes. And, you did mention you having kids and, your regular life, but what keeps you going? What energizes you to go and pick up that pen and paper or to type on your phone or on your computer?
Honestly, it is my version of therapy. Of course, I don't mind sitting on someone's couch or talking to my apostle or other individuals, but it's just something about having that personal therapeutic time, being able to just sit with my own thoughts and express it for how I need them to come out. And I put an emphasis on need because a lot of times when we speak to other people, we tend to curve what we want to say because we don't want to come off wrong, or especially if you're talking to someone that's church oriented. You don't want to curse. You don't want to say anything derogatory, of course, with the exception of and I say this with the kindest words I can. My apostle, I can kind of go to her however it needs to come out, and it just she accepts it, and then we go through it and we move on. But just to be able to sit with my own thoughts and express them how I need them to come out, whether it's full of anger or cuss words or derogatory statements. That's how I started. The version of this book that's out now is probably like the 15th, because when I first started writing, it was very angry because again, this book is centered around my personal life. So it was very angry. There was so many cuss words in that thing. It was hot. I didn't want to touch it. And I'm just being honest. Again, just even me writing about the sexual abuse, I mean, it was so much hurt and pain in that. It had to come out for what it was, or it would not have come out to be what it is now. So just the therapeutic part of it is
Well,
good enough for me to continue to write.
I feel like it's just like hip hop music, the original hip hop from the 80s.
Yeah, absolutely.
They was angry about the system, and so they put it down and wrote rhymes and lyrics and stuff, and Public Enemy and all them guys, and they had to use cussing words because that was authentic to them, and even some of the
Right.
new hip hop, even the drill music, even though it's usually violent, they're talking about what they're going through in their situation and what they're facing every day. So that gives your book it makes your book more authentic. Authentic is what people resonate with. But yeah, did you deal with any self-doubt when working on this project?
That is probably an understatement. Self doubt. Here's the thing, and I just said this to, I call her my little sister, Diamond. I just said this to her right before the interview. I'm like, I'm so used to failing. I don't understand, and it hurts, and it's confusion, and I'm almost like, yeah, I don't want to do this because success, really? That's almost unheard of for what I know I've been through. Yeah, self doubt, gracious, even before this interview. And I remember even going through the years, I modeled professionally and even sang professionally. I started singing professionally when I was 14 years old. And I remember they had to start putting a trash can next to the stage so I could puke beforehand because I'm like, I'm coming here for this. I'm gonna mess it up. And I'll tell you, Diamond was like, if you don't stop giving these excuses, you were made for this. Do it. Stop giving yourself excuses. I promise you, every time that I've had a pep talk from any of my sisters or even my biological mother, she is quite in my life now. But anytime that I've had a pep talk from these individuals, it's kind of like, okay, breathe. You can do this. I'm still nervous. I'm still nervous. I'm still kind of like on the verge of doubting myself, but I know I have to do this. I know I have to do this. If I don't do it just for myself, but I have two biological children of my own, and I'm raising two out of three of my grandchildren, and I got to be the example. I have to be the example that even though I may fear this, which I shouldn't be fearing, even though I may fear this, I have to face it and I have to push through it. Because if I show them otherwise, then that's what they're going to think life is about, running. And yeah, I don't run. I don't do that. Not anymore anyway. That's pretty much the motivation behind that.
See, social media make you think that if you're not at a certain point or at a situation, because everything is fake on social media, that you're failing. But I'd say failing is when you
Right.
don't try at all. You don't go and do what you want to do. That's failing. When you are putting in effort, you're not failing.
Right.
No, but society, the TV, Hollywood, all those people will tell you because you're not famous and you don't have this money that you're a failure. But I feel like there's somebody who wish they could put out a book and they don't even know where to start. So I feel like you're a
Yeah.
winner because you got your book out and people are reading it.
Yes, yes, yes. And I mean, and I promise you that that's honestly why I never even really like pushed the envelope for music. Even when I sing professionally, I sing in the background for other people. I mean, totally convincing myself, well, you don't sound like Kelly Price because I have to go with my own era, right? You don't sound like Kelly Price, or you don't sound like Lettucey. And honestly, for me, even when it came to music, I didn't want to do music because I wanted to be an opera singer when I was a kid. So I definitely didn't fit into the dynamic of what R&B was or soul music was. So that just pushed me away from doing it. And that's that part about fear and even as you stated, social media, even though social media back then wasn't what it is now, but just to see the people on TV, I was just like, oh my God, I can't be that. I can't do that. I remember when I first started reading, one of the first authors that was brought to me was Stephen King and Elin Harris. And I was fascinated. And both these authors are on two different ends of the spectrum, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, like I can do this. And then when you get people like Tyler Perry that came out, and I was like, this is it. I'm really going to push for this. I'm really going to do this. If he can do it, and I'm watching what his story was, and I can do it. And then again, with the two authors that were introduced to me originally, just knowing how different their writing was, but still they were successful. It's like, so there is an in between. That's my point. There is an in between. I don't have to be Stephen King. I don't have to be Kelly Price. I don't have to be Elin Harris, and I sure don't have to be Tyler Perry. But I can strive to use what I know about them and their story, their backstory. I love to watch a backstory. I'm all about watching a backstory. And I can use those things and use it to progress my own idealism, my own thoughts, my own music, my writing, all of that. I promise you, it's going to become bigger than this. If God is truly ordaining for this to happen, y'all ain't seen nothing yet. This is just the beginning.
Definitely. Lastly, where can people purchase your book? And do you have any closing words?
You can, as of right now, you can purchase it on Amazon. There is a hardback, a paperback, and also Kindle. And you can purchase from me personally as well. If I could close with anything, it's just to know to you have to believe in yourself before you expect anyone else to believe in you. And that is something that I am learning and have learned is that if I don't truly believe in me, absolutely cannot expect for anyone else to believe in me. And that was a big issue for me. So that's what I'm going to close with. Believe in yourself so the expectations of others believing in you can manifest itself.
Also, do you have a website so that it can be easier for people to access your book?
I don't have an official website. I do have Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, of course, and all of them are under my author name, which is Ebony Lynn. And that is pretty much it. I am in the process of getting all of these things together. I am not very big on social media. That's something else I'm having to work on, pushing myself to work harder on getting my social media things up and running correctly. As of right now, that's all I have.
No, you never know where this book could take you. I know people who wrote books like 10 years ago, and they're, the books can open up doors for you that you probably never thought you could go with, places you never thought you could go with your book, and you never know your book could turn into a movie or like we was talking about Tyler Perry. You never know.
Absolutely.
Tyler Perry or 50 Cent or somebody might pick up your book and might want to turn it into a movie. So you never know. And then that could be an independent director. There's so many people coming out since now it's easier to put out films and stuff and Tubi. So I do appreciate you coming to Inspired with a 3, not a E. Definitely thank you for coming through and talking with us. Have a great
Thank
day.
you.